Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the founder of Food Truck Training Group on Facebook, co-owner with my beautiful wife, Melissa, of our own food truck. It's called Food Truck 101, and I'm the executive director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, a nonprofit that's dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today I'm going to be talking about managing food truck finances. It's one of those boring subjects that sadly a lot of food truck owners don't truly understand. So before we talk about your finances, let's talk about the Food Truck Owners Expo that's going to be held in Orlando, Florida this year. It's November 12th and 13th of 2024. I'm going to be there both days giving classes on important topics to the food truck industry, as well as I'll be out in the Campfire Networking Lounge talking about more things to do with food trucks, as well as answering all the questions you guys have pertaining to our industry. So please, go to FTOexpo.com, place your order for the tickets today, and when you do, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. I also want to thank Table Needs for sponsoring this episode of the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Table Needs is a full-service POS system capable of handling your busy food truck cash, credit card, and reporting needs. Check out the link in the description for more information about Table Needs. So let's talk about a subject that very rarely is addressed or addressed in enough detail to make an impact on people, and that is managing food truck finances. So let's look at this from the standpoint of you're a brand new beginner. Now don't turn off the podcast if you've been doing this a while, because I'll bet you there's things in here that you're not doing right now. But let's do it as if you're a beginner. You got to understand your startup cost. There's going to be more startup cost than you realize. No matter how meticulous your planning is, there will be something you've forgotten. You can download all the different checklists out there. You can get all the advice you possibly can. There's going to be something you forget. So you have to understand what the real startup costs are, plus give yourself a buffer to cover unexpected expenses. Now, some of the things you need to include when you're considering those startup costs are you purchasing the food truck and the down payment? What's that monthly payment going to look like? Are you going to rent to own or lease to own? How much is it going to cost to outfit the kitchen? How much are the permits and licenses? How about the initial inventory? How much money are you spending on that? You got to have a detailed breakdown of these expenses, because that'll help you to budget more accurately going forward. Separate your personal and business finances. I cannot stress this one enough. The second, and I do mean the literal second, that you decide I'm going to run a food truck and you commit money to it, you have to have a couple of things set up in advance. You have to have that federal EIN number. What that does is it automatically separates you from your business. You have effectively created a child, if you want to think of it that way. When your child's born, it's given a social security number. An EIN is effectively the social security number for your business. And the EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. You need that. I also recommend that you set up an LLC. LLC is going to be a few $100s. You can do it yourself. You don't need to pay someone else to do it. Most states actually populate the information for you, and all you got to do is tell them what your name is and what the name of the business is going to be. So if you're going to go the route of an LLC, you want to do that first, then do the EIN. LLC's first, EIN then is done in the name of the LLC. Again, it creates that separate entity from you. You have to do that, because that helps to separate your personal finances from the business. Then the next thing you want to do after you got the LLC and the EIN is set up a business bank account. There are many free bank accounts around the country and perhaps even locally for you. Find one that is the least expensive possible and then fund it. And then everything that goes to your business comes out of that bank account in some way, shape, or form. You write checks or use the debit card. Either way, everything has a paper trail coming through the business. If you do not do that, I'm going to say that again. If you do not do that, if you make someone sick, if someone trips and falls over the tongue of your trailer and breaks an arm, and they decide they're going to sue you because you are negligent, if you do not have separate finances, they are suing you, the person, rather than you, the business. So the only thing they can win if they sue the business is whatever assets you have in the business. But if you don't have that LLC and that separation of personal and business finances, then the judge is going to say, yep, it's one entity and we're suing everything. So you could lose your house, lose your car. You could lose everything just because you tried to cheap out and not set up that LLC and then understand how to do an LLC. So you got to separate the business finances from the personal. You want to create a detailed budget. And a detailed budget is not a one and done thing. It is an ongoing exercise that you have to do to run a successful food business. All a budget means is you're going to think ahead, how much revenue do we have coming in? And then how's that revenue going to be spent? What you're looking at is the bottom line. If the revenue coming in does not exceed the expenses you have planned going out, you got a problem, and it's a marketing problem. How do I get more people coming to my business to increase that revenue? But you want to know that ahead of time. You don't want to wait till the end of the month when the accountant gives you the information on that P&L and it says negative, because now you're behind. You want to know that number every single day. It's called a break-even point. I talk about that a lot on many classes. So you got to understand a detailed budget. You want to monitor cash flow. Cash flow is what keeps your business alive. It's basically the blood coursing through the veins of your business. But if there's not enough cash flow, what happens? You don't have enough money to pay for something important like, food for tomorrow. So you want to monitor your expenses. You want to monitor how much cash you have on hand to cover those expenses, and then understand where the money's going. If you plan on running a 25% food cost, it's a number I love to talk about, a 25% food cost. That means you should not be spending more than 25% of your projected revenue to buy inventory. So if you project to do $10,000 this month, at most, this month, you should only be spending $2,500 to buy food, or as close as you can get. I know some things you buy by the case and it may be a little bit more, but it's not going to be a lot more. But if you find yourself on paper, I'm running a 25% food cost because that's what you planned your menu out to be, but you're spending 30 or 35% or 40% every month of your sales to buy food, you have a food cost problem. And I don't have to tell you you have one because you should know you have one. If your goal is 25%, that's how you laid out the menu to run 25%, and what you're spending is more than 25% of your revenue, you've got an inventory problem. You have a food cost problem. But you got to monitor that. Again, if you wait till the end of the month, you're not monitoring it. Monitor it every day. Track your expenses diligently. Every single day that you spend money, it should be recorded in some way, shape, or form against your sales. Because ideally, sales coming in and expenses going out at best should be the same, and hopefully you have more income coming in than you have expenses going out. You got to monitor that every single day, record it every single day. It takes 10 minutes max to record your expenses if you do it every day. If you throw them in a shoebox and wait till the end of the month, or worse, wait till the end of the year, you're going to be surprised, and it's going to be in a negative way. Yes, you have 71-minute tasks to do every single hour. One of those tasks needs to be putting your expenses into some type of software, into a spreadsheet where it's being tracked and you can monitor it. If you don't do that, you're going to be surprised how little money you have. You got to understand your break-even point. I have said this, I would bet 10,000 times over the different podcasts. You got to understand your break-even point, and you have to achieve that break-even point every single day. If you don't know what your daily break-even point is, you are shooting in the dark, and most likely you're missing. If your break-even point is $500 a day in sales, you have to do $500 today. If you do not, whatever that shortfall is today has to be made up tomorrow. You can't cross your fingers and go, we'll get it eventually. Because each day you don't make $500, you're falling farther and farther into debt, which means you are putting personal money into your business to keep it afloat. You have to know that break-even point. I've got a whole class on break-even point. Go to my website, spend the money. It's $19. Get that class. Learn your break-even point. Invest in insurance. Insurance is an investment. As much as I hate insurance, because our goals are different. We as people want the lowest premium possible on insurance that we are most likely going to need. Insurance companies' goals are they want to sell you the highest possible premium on insurance you will never ever use. Since those goals are at odds with each other, insurance companies are not your friend. They may say they are, but they're not. The insurance agent is a salesperson. That's all they are. They can be your best buddy, but when you go to file a claim, they have nothing to do with the claims process. They may help you file the claim, because that may be part of their job description, but they do not have the decision-making authority to say, yes, this claim is approved for X amount of dollars. Claims adjusters do that. Claims adjusters, especially when there's an injury involved, try to get to you while you're still recovering, and they will offer you the lowest amount possible for for you to accept and sign away your rights to be able to sue them. They do that because they hope that you're going to, $5,000 sounds great, when really the particular injury you've had may be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 in typical payments in the past, but they're going to offer you something low to basically make you go away. They are not your friend, but you need them, so invest in it and get the coverages that you need. You need 3 at least. If you have a trailer, you will need commercial auto on the tow vehicle. Do not believe anyone that says you can just put it on your personal. No, you can't. You will have a wreck, and when you have a wreck and you go to file it, they'll say, hey, you're towing a vehicle with your personal. We're not only not covering the business because it's being towed by personal, we're not covering the personal because it was towing a business. It all comes down to exposure. That's all insurance companies do. They play numbers games. Exposure means that you are in an activity that exposes the insurance company to a potential claim. So you as a business means you're driving more miles. You're driving more miles than you told them originally you were going to be putting on your personal vehicle. So they won't cover the personal vehicle because it's exceeded the miles you claimed you drove. And they're not going to cover the commercial property because it was being towed by a personal vehicle. So you have a 100% loss because you didn't buy the right kind of insurance. So you need commercial auto. You need commercial property. The trailer being towed by the commercial auto is the only thing being covered, the actual trailer, the body, the wheels, the ceiling, the floors. Not one piece of equipment that's not permanently attached. So that grill that's sitting on a counter, not permanently attached, falls into the floor and destroys the gas lines feeding it. Guess what? It's a loss if you don't have commercial property. All the inventory that goes bad because you wrecked and the generator kicked off and all the food in the refrigeration goes bad, not covered because that is not a part of commercial auto. That's why you need commercial property to cover the inventory and the equipment that's not permanently attached to the trailer. Then the other one you need is liability. Somebody trips and falls, somebody gets sick on the food you prepare, you need to have liability to cover that. That's the 3 basics. There are more insurances, but you got to get the 3 basics. You got to have a reserve fund. There's going to be something go wrong and you want to have money into it. Now, what I do on the break-even point is I have you set aside money, and you want to have those accounts already in place. So, for example, if you set aside 2% of your sales, assuming there's going to be repair and maintenance issues in the future, that money is basically in a reserve fund. It's not going to be spent until it pertains to repair and maintenance. Marketing's the same way. Whenever your sales go down and you feel like you need to market, you want to have money in the bank to market. And you let that money build up, and you let it build up daily. Now, you can cap the money if you want. I don't recommend that because it is a very rare thing that you put so much money in there that you haven't spent it already. But you can cap each account. So you need a reserve account to cover repair and maintenance because it's going to happen. You need one to cover marketing because it's going to happen. You need one to cover when you're going to be down because you're either sick or the weather's bad. So you need to have money set aside to cover those slow months. And again, you can cap it, but I don't recommend that. Just keep putting money in there. Keep putting money in there. And if you go 2 or 3 years and haven't used it, awesome. You got a bonus. But don't just cut it off because, I won't need more than 1,000. Because I guarantee you there's going to be a day when something goes wrong and you need 2,000. But because you capped it at 1,000, now you're struggling to figure out where to get the other 1,000 from. You want to review your financial statements religiously. I review mine technically every day because I'm so used to it. I want to know what we did, what we spent, where do we stand, and I look at those every single day. I have a whole bunch of categories I fill out on a spreadsheet, and then within those categories I've got graphs so that I can see anomalies. You've got to track your sales. You've got to track your expenses. You've got to track your guest count. You've got to track so many different metrics. And if you do them every single day, they only take 5-10 minutes max, unless there's an issue. And I'd rather know there's an issue today than go 30 days with an issue and have each day that issue gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the accountant says, hey, Bill, you got a problem. Keep everything caught up. Keep everything under control every single day. Then you won't be surprised. It falls back to that break-even point that we talked about. If you need $500 a day in sales, and today you only did $400, you're $100 behind. Tomorrow needs to be a $600 day. It needs a $500 that tomorrow needed just to break even, plus the $100 you fell short today just to break even. That's how much you got to be on top of your numbers. If you're not on top of your numbers, you will reach a point where you're calling me up saying, Bill, I have no money. Can you please give me some advice? And those are the hardest calls for me, because I know what it's like to not have money. One of the first restaurants that I had, super excited we had a restaurant. It's mine. No one can tell me what I need to do because it's my restaurant. And we did a whole bunch of things right. What we didn't do was market well enough. And as time went on, our sales were trending downward because we weren't marketing enough. And that was all on us. We weren't marketing enough. Got to the point where all of our vendors were cash on delivery. Not a good thing, because that means you're having to spend $2,000 sometimes to get food to be able to sell tomorrow. So there's this one particular month where we were struggling and got to the point where the cash on delivery order was going to have about $1,200 worth of food on it. We did not have $1,200 worth of sales from the day before to cover that. Not in cash. No, we had it in cash and credit, but we didn't have it in cash. So I had to take all of our store bank, all of the cash registers money, and all the daily sales from the day before to come up with that $1,200 and whatever odd change it was to pay the driver. Once I paid him, of course, he'll start bringing in the food. Awesome, now we got stuff to sell. Problem was, if somebody comes in, I can't make change. They come in with a 20 and they order $15 worth of food. I didn't have a 5 to give them. The only thing I had was rolled coins and loose coins in the cash register, and not many of those. So while we're unloading the truck and getting excited that we got food to sell, somebody comes in with a 20 and orders, I think it was $8 worth of food. So the cashier comes back because she knew what was going to happen. She can't make change. Bill, I got to break this 20. So I had to go down the block to a convenience store and have them break the 20 for me, and then come back with the change. And of course, we only get $8 worth of it. So now I got to hope the next guest that orders food, the change is going to be less than $8. Otherwise, I'm going back to the convenience store and having to break whatever they gave us. And we had to do that in the middle of lunch. So I made many trips to that convenience store before we finally built up enough cash to be able to make change without me having to run to the convenience store. I've been in that position where it is no fun to run the business because you almost dread seeing people come in because, oh crap, I can't make change. If they walk in with a credit card, you're super happy because you don't have to worry about the change. But not everybody does that. So I've been in that position. I know what it's like to rob Peter to pay Paul and hope that Mary doesn't want some money too. Stay on top of your numbers. If you learn anything from all 500 and some podcasts, stay on top of your numbers. React when things aren't going right. Otherwise, you're going to be in that same position I was, except you may not be lucky enough to come out of it. Once we built up a little tiny bit of money, we started running ads in local papers, and that eventually saved us. This is back before social media was a big thing. But I tell you, that $35 I spent on that first, or it's $39 that I spent on that ad, was scary because we really didn't have it to spend. I could have spent that on something else, but I needed to get an influx of new guests into the business. Otherwise, we weren't going to make it another couple of weeks before we would just flat run out of money. We wouldn't be able to pay the electric bill, and at the point that we couldn't pay the electric bill, we're closed. So do whatever it takes to stay on top of those numbers. I don't care how tired you are. It has to be a part of your daily routine. So thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Take a moment to follow our podcast, and if you really like what we do, then please show us some support. There's going to be a link in the description where you can make that support happen. Every little bit does help keep us going. Until next time, you guys have a profitable day.